Hello and welcome everybody to episode number 35 of Three Things with JR. I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about here at the top of the show, but I'm actually going to talk about the top of the show because I sit here getting ready to record the show and I'm writing down notes on things I want to say, the order in which I want to say them, things like that. Kind of just bullet points. I don't usually script out an entire episode, but I get kind of ready. I know what I want to talk about, and then I just sit there staring at the computer, finally getting up the nerve to hit record. And it's like it's crazy because what I was just watching on Facebook, it kind of reminds me of that. Somebody posted a video, it was about 15 minutes long, and the video is simply a camera pointed at a 10-meter diving platform at an indoor pool. And on the whole entire video is people that have clearly never jumped from a 10-meter platform on the platform, contemplating jumping, and many of them are scared. Very few of them don't hesitate at all. Most of them contemplate whether they're going to do it for quite a long time. Some of them ultimately decide not to, and they climb back down the ladder. Other ones, they get themselves right to the edge and they almost do it, and then their knees buckle and they decide not to, and then they change their mind and then they do it. And it's like that moment of commitment of jumping off the 10-meter platform is kind of, for me, kind of like hitting record on the podcast. It's like, as soon as I hit record, the show's going to happen. I'm going to say something. And I didn't know this is what I was going to say until I hit the record button just about 2.5 minutes ago. So there you go. Hitting record and just starting. I like to think that if I was on the 10-meter platform, I would jump without hesitation. I like to think that. I have jumped before, not technically from a 10-meter platform, but now I'm going to try to think of the things that I have jumped from. And I'll start when I was pretty young, 10 or 11, something like that. We were at a family vacation in Deep Creek Lake, Maryland. There is a neat park there with a waterfall and a swimming hole and it's a very popular place, but you can jump probably a good 10 or 15 feet from a rock down into a swimming hole. And that's the first time I remember jumping from something kind of scary like that. I never had a problem jumping off of diving boards, even the high dive. I always loved jumping off the high dive. So that was always easy. Jumping into water from a high place has not usually been something that scared me much, if at all. I bungee jumped when I was around 19 down at Virginia Beach. They had a bungee jumping tower, and I chose to go they had two different ways you could do it. You could get strapped in with like a 5-point harness, or you could have the harness wrapped around your ankles. And ever since I had first seen anybody bungee jump on TV, they always did it with them wrapped around their ankles. That seemed the coolest way to do it. So I was all in on having it wrapped around my ankles. They take you up a little elevator, you jump down. There was a big airbag underneath. It was nothing really. I felt it was little to no risk of doing the bungee jumping at this professional bungee jumping facility, and that was great. No problem there. Back when I was in high school, friends and I, this was a popular thing to do. I only did it a couple times, but we went to an old trestle, I think it is, or train track bridge that is no longer a bridge for actual trains. It goes over the C&O Canal, which is right next to the Potomac River, right on the edge of D.C. and Virginia there. And the bridge goes over the C&O Canal, this one stretch of bridge that's still there. It's part of a pedestrian walkway now, and has been for quite a long time. But apparently it was a thing that kids would go out there and jump off the train track bridge into the C&O Canal, which at that particular place was somewhere in the range of 7 to 10 feet deep with a pretty soft, murky bottom. There was rumors of there being a rock somewhere in the vicinity of where you would land, and some people said they knew where it was, and so we knew basically where to try to avoid. I never felt the rock, so it worked. Yeah, so we would jump off this train track bridge into the C&O Canal, and it was, I don't know if it was a good 10 meters, like a 10-meter platform, but somewhere in that vicinity, somewhere in that range, not far off. And we jumped off there. I probably jumped off there 10 or 15 times and just loved it. There was a technique to it. You wanted to make sure that basically as soon as your feet hit the water, sort of kick them out in front of you. Both your legs, keep them together, and like kick as you're going in the water, so that by the time your head's underwater, you are sort of making a U, and your feet are coming back up towards the top. So you're never going to go straight down into the murky bottom of the C&O Canal. You're not going to get stuck. You're not going to hit anything like a rock and break your leg. You're just going to it's just going to make it really nice and smooth, and that just worked beautifully. So hit the water, kick out, and just make that a nice smooth landing in the water, and that was a lot of fun. One of the crazier things that I did not do was climb to the top of the bridge. So where I was jumping from train track level, so like the lowest part of the bridge. There were definitely others that I saw climb to the top. You know, this is one of those bridges that has the big beams that go all way up for supporting it above. And people would climb to the top of that, which was easily another 10 meters or more, and jump from there into that same C&O Canal, the same depth. And they did it without a problem. Very few people ever had any problems. I know one person had their arms outstretched straight out from the left and right on their body, and maybe pinched or popped a nerve or something as the side of their arm smacked against the water. Because with quite an impact. But other than that, I know of nobody having gotten hurt doing that. And that was one of my favorite days of high school, which was Memorial Day. It was actually Memorial Day, would have been 1992, Memorial Day 92. Yeah, that's when that was. That was pretty awesome. And more recently, my daughter and I went skydiving, so I have jumped out of an airplane, and I did that without hesitation. Of course, I had a professional skydiver strapped to my back, which made it much easier, but there was literally nothing that was going to stop me from jumping out of that plane. I was so excited to do it. I had every confidence in the world that our chute was going to open, that my professional skydiver I was riding tandem with knew what he was doing, and that we were going to land safely on the ground. And sure enough, we did. And that was absolutely as amazing as I wanted it to be. So I'd like to think that if I was one of those people in this video that I just saw, it's a New York Times video. I don't know what it's called. It's somebody posted it on Facebook. It's 15 minutes of people jumping off of a 10-meter platform or not, or hesitating or thinking about it, and seeing the agony, seeing the people chicken out, seeing the people finally get over their nerves and do it. It's pretty awesome. And so, yeah, I had no idea I was going to talk about any of that stuff here at the top of the show. And look at that, 9 minutes in, and I haven't even gotten to the stuff I wrote down that I wanted to talk about in this episode of 3 Things with JR. So why don't we do that? Why don't we get to thing number 1? And it's similar to what I was just talking about, but it's a little different. It's the concept of going downhill fast. When I say something, or when I say going downhill fast, some of you out there listening are thinking of how that can refer to, deterioration, the maybe end of life, maybe that, you used to be able to do some stuff, but because you're going downhill fast, you can't really do that stuff anymore. Things like that. Think of it as a health thing. Think of it as the quality of life thing. I don't know. That's certainly part of it's what a lot of you are thinking of when I talk about going downhill fast. But when I started writing these notes for what I wanted to talk about, it had nothing to do with deterioration and everything to do with the adrenaline junkie side of actually going down a hill at a fast pace, going downhill. I thoroughly enjoy going downhill. I have always loved it. Riding bicycles, going downhill was like the thing that I wanted to do most. And I was never afraid to ride up a hill with knowing that the payoff was going to be getting to be able to ride down the hill afterwards. So riding uphill to go downhill was always fantastic. Usually there's a jump involved or there's something, right? Going downhill fast, usually on a bike, running downhill fast doesn't seem all that much fun. Seems like a great way to face plant. So I'm not talking about that. Rolling down a hill, though, was an incredibly fun thing to do as a child. And what I've definitely gone mountain biking and I've gone downhill on a mountain bike pretty fast, but not what mountain bikers think of today as downhill riding. Downhill mountain biking is not for me. And I know this because I have watched a bunch of YouTube videos on it, and I'm just going to totally live vicariously through mountain bikers that ride their mountain bikes downhill. Because these guys are insane, and there's no way at this point in my life that I would even consider doing that. But what these guys are doing is riding. A lot of times it's at ski resorts. I was just watching a guy who was at Whistler, and there's just what seems to be many miles of mountain bike trails that go downhill. There's jumps. There's crazy features. They're catching so much air, and they're doing it at such a pace. Like they're really riding the most narrow single track you can imagine, downhill, rarely hitting the brakes, hitting rocks, roots, and these guys are so good at what they're doing that they just seem to not have any fear. And I think it's because they've built up the skills and the experience that they don't have the fear, that they're willing to try anything. Also, they've got amazing bicycles. These things are thousands of dollars, incredible suspension systems. I mean, they're built for doing this. I don't have the right kind of bike. I don't have the right kind of experience and skills, and I definitely don't have the nuts to do it. And so I'm kind of jealous, but it's nice that these videos exist where I get to watch people go mountain biking down a hill. GoPro makes it possible, having these cameras that are on the helmet, on the chest, and you being able to basically experience this adrenaline filled rush that without actually having any danger. I'm just sitting here at my desk watching these YouTube videos, and it's awesome. There's other ways of going downhill though. Roller coasters, that's a pretty safe way to get that feeling of going down the hill, that rush where your heart is up in your throat, and it's pretty awesome. Skiing is actually, as far as I can think of, the only way that I still, at this time in my life, I'm 46 years old, that I'm willing to like take a chance and go downhill fast. And I still do. When the ski conditions are right, when I'm feeling confident, I will definitely bomb a ski run. I'm not a technically great skier. I'm not great at moguls. I don't love super bumpy stuff. I'm not good in deep powder. I like a well-groomed trail that is not super icy, but I don't mind it being hard, packed, groomed, and man, my favorite thing to do while skiing is to go super fast, straight down, hit some curves here and there. But for the most part, I just kind of want to go top to bottom without really doing anything to slow down. Like that's my goal. When I get to the ski resort, I want to go from being scared all in the morning to by the afternoon, I want to have no fear for going from top to bottom without putting on the brakes at all. And that is a lot of fun. It's tough to do. I don't always get there by the end of the day, but like that's kind of what I'm aiming for, is that kind of fearless run. So yeah, man, going downhill fast. I like it. I like doing it. I like watching other people do it. And yeah, it's pretty great. I used to, those no fear stickers. I have long since left the concept of no fear. I am definitely a person who has fear. I have some fear. In fact, I even made up one of those no fear styled stickers, but instead of saying no fear, it says some fear, because that more accurately describes me now. I am definitely keeping myself alive by not doing crazy, stupid stuff that I used to maybe do, and without even thinking much about it, that I am much more cautious now because, I've been injured enough times to know that I'd rather not be injured again. So there you go. That being said, I will still do some dumb stuff. So it's not like I have all the fear. I have some fear. Enough fear to keep me from mountain biking down a mountain, but not enough fear to keep me from skiing down the mountain. So there you go. All right, that's thing one. Let's do a drum solo. Be back in a second. There's something to be said for going downhill slow. I was just thinking about that while I played you that commercial. I'm cool with just watching others go downhill fast because, flat ground ain't so bad anyway. All right, thing number two, something that's inspiring me, something that's making me happy, something from pop culture, something like that, and it is another podcast. I have pretty much gotten into the podcast life. It's kind of all I listen to. I just spent $600 on a pretty amazing car stereo so that I could listen to mostly podcasts. And a lot of times the podcasts have pretty great music in them, and especially the ones that are about music. And I've been devouring a podcast I just heard about a month or so ago for the first time. It is called Broken Record. It is hosted by Rick Rubin and Malcolm Gladwell and one other guy, I forgot his name. But these guys get some pretty major stars, stars that Rick Rubin has worked with, as well as musicians, artists that Rick Rubin has not worked with. And I love it. Rick Rubin's interview style is just so sort of, it's great. He's great at getting the artists to open up about what motivates them, what moves them, how they do what they do, how they've done what they've done. And he's great at that. And he's also incredibly thoughtful and caring in his questions. It's somehow he's able to get people to open up without really being in any way confrontational. Kind of like a nicer version of a Howard Stern interview. Really, they go deep and they get you what you want, and with just great conversations about how music is made. For example, how Tom Petty worked on Wildflowers with Rick Rubin. How Bruce Springsteen came up with many of his hits, many of his greatest songs, some of the songs that you've never heard of, his latest album. The most recent episode featured pretty much my favorite musician of all time, which would now be Sturgill Simpson. And he just released an album of bluegrass tunes, and they talk about that as well as just Sturgill's history in general and how Sturgill makes music, how Sturgill had COVID-19, and just I love it. And there's a whole bunch more episodes that I am very excited to hear, to dive into. So there's Lenny Kravitz. That's a pretty cool one. Actually, the first episode of the show, it was an interview with Rick Rubin, just talking to Rick about what he does and his life. And at the time, there was wildfires, and he was having to leave his house and all of that. So some crazy stuff there. But the Black Keys, Dan Auerbach and Patrick Carney, Brandi Carlile he's on here a couple times. Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers, Andre 3000, Brittany Howard from the episode is about her going solo, but she was in a band. I can't even remember the name of it anymore. James Taylor, Nathaniel Ratliff, John Legend, Alicia Keys, Drive-By Truckers, Jason Isbell. I can't wait to hear that one. If you are at all into any of these musicians, check it out, brokenrecordpodcast.com, and then click on all episodes, and you'll see everything that's available. There is about 72 episodes out there, and each one's about an hour-ish long each, so there is plenty to devour, and not every one of these musicians does much for me, but maybe I'll learn something about them if I get a chance to listen to some of those. But of course, I'm going to start with the episodes that are featuring musicians that I'm into, and so that's a pretty great podcast if you're at all into any of these musicians. You're going to find it's a great interview. You're going to learn a lot about the people that you idolize. So brokenrecordpodcast.com will get you to all the episodes, and of course they're available everywhere you're listening to podcasts. If you're listening to this podcast, you can probably listen to that podcast in the same place. So there you go. That's thing number 2. Moving on to thing number 3. So last week we were all about Scherzer attempting to kill a possum, and this one is also going to be Scherzer related. Scherzer is my dog, and he is really, he's all about 2 things in life. One, hanging with me. He does not want to be too far from me. If I leave him, he's not happy about that. So he wants to be with me. That's goal number 1. Goal number 2, as long as I'm around, he wants to then kill things. Squirrels, cats, possums, raccoons, a fox, baby deer, anything he can get his claws on, his paws, his jaws around. He wants to do that. That's kind of his goal. When I let him out of the front door, he sits there and he waits for some movement that he can chase down. Well, Scherzer and I go play disc golf quite a lot. We usually play at Meadow Creek Gardens Park in Charlottesville, right behind Bodo's. And there's a creek that runs through the park, and usually right around the creek, there's going to be some wildlife. At one point, we crossed the creek, and it's right around there, either before or after we cross the creek. He's going to find something that he can attack. One time, he got a fox. He and a fox were in it. They were kind of fighting, and the fox was able to outfox Scherzer because he knew where the drain pipe was that he could fit into, and Scherzer couldn't. So the fox, even though Scherzer had him in his mouth, the fox was able to get away. And I think Scherzer's been really trying to stalk that fox ever since. That was just 3 or 4 months ago that he almost caught himself a fox. Which I thoroughly enjoy watching. I hope nothing bad ends up happening, but it's kind of entertaining to watch Scherzer do it, to watch him hunt and take off and attack and usually fail at killing anything. But these in the last week or so, he's found some things that were already dead, and this is not as entertaining to me. So he came running across the creek to catch up to me, and when he got to me, I realized he had something in his mouth, and when I saw what it was, it seemed like maybe like what was left of a squirrel, like the squirrel's skin, and it was kind of in his mouth, and I'm literally starting to gag just thinking about this, but he wanted to eat it, and it was halfway in his mouth, and oh my God, I'm just looking at it, I'm thinking, no, I tell him, yeah, no, Scherzer, let it go. And so he finally he gets like 80% of it down, and then as I'm yelling at him, no, he basically barfs it back out right there onto the path. And it is definitely like what's left from a squirrel. And just watching him try to put it down, because he couldn't chew it all. He couldn't chew it. He couldn't make it into bites. He was just trying to literally just swallow it, and thankfully he didn't. About a week later, we were at that same spot before we were crossing the creek, and this time I noticed that it could have been the same skin. I don't know. It was disgusting. It was definitely what was left of a dead animal, and he had it in his mouth and it was too late to stop it. And it went in and it went down. And I am just about to barf thinking about it and telling you about it. It's disgusting. And so I just wanted to share. I wanted everybody to know that when my dog comes to lick your face, which he's not much of a face licker, really, but if he does, just know where that tongue has been. There has been live squirrels, live foxes, and dead things all in that mouth. And it is, wow. Anyway, that's just the joys of living with a hunter named Scherzer. So there you go. Thing number 3 done. Episode number 35. I think we're wrapping it up. I'll be back next week with 3 more things and whatever else. Thanks so much for listening. I love you all.